Hi guys, welcome to today's video. This is a super easy but really delicious dessert. It's one of my favorite, especially for fall time. We're going to be making a pumpkin roll. First steps first, you want to take your baking sheet, and this is just a standard size baking sheet. I think it's like a 13 by 9 baking sheet, but you're going to pull off some waxed paper and really get it pressed down into the sides so that it comes up the sides of your pan, and then you're going to grease it really good with some cooking spray. Now, it doesn't matter what kind of cooking spray. I'm just using the canola oil kind. The only thing I would say is if you're going to use the olive oil kind, it might give it kind of a funky taste. So I would probably go with a different kind of cooking spray rather than olive oil. So the pumpkin cake part of this, which is what we're going to mix up first, you can mix by hand, but when it comes time that we're going to make the cream cheese filling for it, I really do recommend having an electric mixer, even if it's just a little hand mixer. I'm going to mix mine here in my KitchenAid, so I'm going to start with 3 eggs here. They're going in first. So you can see me cracking those, and I apologize. I've got some serious RBF going on in this video for some reason, and here in a little while you'll see my mouth moving. I had my grandmother and my daughter both in the room talking to me while I was filming this. So you'll also see me kind of look over the camera or towards the camera. So next we're going to move on. We have 1 cup of sugar going in. So I'm going off camera to grab that. And both of the recipes, the recipe for this cake mixture and for the icing, will both be posted at the end of this video. So if you don't catch all of these ingredients as we go, don't worry. You can pause it at the end and copy those down. So our next ingredient here, we're going to go in with our canned pumpkin. Now I have one of the large cans. I could get quite a few pumpkin rolls out of this. I think if you buy the regular sized can, I think I got 2 pumpkin rolls out of those. You can see my grandmother bringing her laundry out of the laundry room there in the back. So we're going in. It's 2/3 of a cup of that canned pumpkin. And I'm making a lovely mess with it. So you're going to add that in. And while you're mixing this up, you want to have your oven preheating to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Another thing that is good about these pumpkin rolls is that once these are made and they're good and cold from the fridge, you can then wrap them in foil and then in plastic wrap, and you can actually freeze these for up to 3 months. So if this was something that you wanted to maybe give as a gift around the holidays, you could get them done now or even possibly in October, and you could just have them in the freezer and then pull them out a few days before you're ready to use them. Now we're going in with our flour. This is just all-purpose flour, and it is 3/4 of a cup is what you're going to use for this. So I'm going to put that in there. Next, we're going to go in with our seasonings, which is going to be salt, cinnamon, and then baking soda. So we're going to baking soda first. It's 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Next is going to be also 1 teaspoon, and that's of your ground cinnamon. And then we're going to go in with our salt. It calls for just 1/8 of a teaspoon. Really, it's just like a pinch. Just put a very tiny bit in the palm of your hand and then flick it in there. Alright, and then we're going to start our mixer. I'm going to start it on low because these KitchenAid mixers for some reason like to fling flour and other powdered stuff all over the place. speeding it up now here. If you're going in with a hand mixer and you can control where all of your stuff is in the bowl, then you're probably okay to start on like a setting number 2 or 3 from the beginning. Another thing with the KitchenAids, your whisks and your other mixing heads never reach all the way down to the bottom of the bowl, so you really want to make sure that you get in there and stir up everything that's on the bottom so that it gets mixed in. So that's what I'm doing here. Then I'll put the mixing head back on there and mix it for about 2 more minutes or so, maybe not quite 2 minutes. And I'll have the speed up a little bit higher on that. You just want to mix it until there are no more lumps left in this. You want it to be nice and smooth. And cleaning up my work area here, I'm going to bring my pan over that we have our waxed paper on. Alright, so that's done mixing. Gonna pop the whisk head out of there. And what you're gonna do with this pumpkin mixture, when you pour it into your pan, this is gonna be kind of the tedious part. You wanna make sure that you get it as even as possible all over the pan, and you wanna get it spread all the way to the corners. So all down the sides, all into each corner, and you want to have it as level as you possibly can in the middle. You don't want one side to puff up a lot higher than the other, or it won't roll like it's supposed to later on. Alright, so I've got that in there. Now I'm going to start spreading it everywhere. And it's kind of a liquidy batter. It's not super thick, so you don't have to like smash down into it with your spatula. You're just kind of running it over the top of that batter to get it to spread. And you'll see me really making sure I get it down into the corners. Now, traditionally, you would take, once this comes out of the oven, and you'll roll it up in your towel, which we'll see that process here in a minute, and you would let them sit out just on your counter for maybe an hour or more while they cool completely. If you're in a hurry, you could sit them in the fridge for maybe 15 minutes, or you could pop them in the freezer for 10 or 15 minutes to get them to cool quicker once they're rolled up. So I got this all spread out. It's going to go in the oven at 350, and that's going to bake 12 to 15 minutes. It really depends on your oven. You got to check them. Mine ended up having to go for 14 minutes in my oven. So I'm putting it in now. Here it is whenever it comes out. This is after 14 minutes in my oven, but what you're really checking for is on your edges here. Of course, you don't want the middle to still look goopy or wet or anything, but your edges are what you really want to watch. You want this nice golden brown that you see there on the edges, and you want to see that your waxed paper pulls away from those edges easily. So now I have a flour sack towel here. You could do a flour sack towel or a linen tea towel. You just don't want a towel that is really fibrous, like you wouldn't use a bath towel or anything for this, because the pumpkin roll, when you turn it out on there, it will pick up the fibers from those. And another thing that I did to mine before I sprinkled it is I actually took a lint roller and just went over mine to make sure that there was nothing on it. And I'm dusting mine with powdered sugar. If you don't want the extra sugar on it, you could dust it with a little bit of flour, would be just fine too. I just prefer mine a little bit sweeter, and I already have my powdered sugar out because I'm going to be making my icing here in a few minutes, so that's what I use. And if you see in the background, I'm busting up just some of the bigger little clumps of the powdered sugar that are in there and just breaking them down into smaller pieces. And that you won't have to worry about because your cake will actually absorb that powdered sugar and you won't have like big balls of it stuck to the outside or anything. And so my cake is sitting back there on the stove. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's on a 5-minute timer. And that is our 5 minutes that it has to cool before you can turn it out of that pan. If you do it straight out of the oven, it will crack and fall apart. So now I have it here. Your pan will still be warm to the touch, so you want your oven mitts like I had back there. And what you're going to do here, you see me taking my wax paper and kind of pulling it back off of the very edges of that cake. And the shadow from my pan is reflecting on the bottom of this cake, so it looks super burnt right now, but I promise it's not. You'll see it in a minute. It's just a nice golden brown on the bottom. So I'm waiting for my timer to go off. And there it goes. That's me hitting the timer on my microwave. And then you're going to take this and turn it out onto your towel, which you'll see. I'm blowing some powder up in your face there. And this can get a little bit messy, so you'll have some powdered sugar and stuff to wipe up at the end of this. So there you'll see the bottom of my cake is not actually black and burnt. And if you sprayed your wax paper well enough, it should just peel right off just like that. You just start at one end, peel it. The only thing that will give you trouble with this is if you did not make sure that you greased the sides of the waxed paper. They will get caught on the sides of your cake and it can pull it apart whenever you're trying to peel that waxed paper off of there. Alright, clear my station. And now you're going to roll this long ways from the short ends anyway. So I'm going to flip this around so you guys can see there. I'm going to put a little bit of that powdered sugar from that towel on the top to try to keep it from sticking to that towel. And then you're just going to start at one end and you're going to very gently and slowly roll this. And you want a loose roll. You don't want to roll it up as tight as you can possibly get it because it'll cause the cake to split. Just a very gentle roll it over on itself a few times. And that is what it will look like in your towel. You could leave that out on the counter if you're going to take your time with it. I'm doing this just for the video, so I end up putting mine in the freezer for about 10 to 15 minutes. So the next thing we're going to do is mix up our filling for it. It's a cream cheese icing filling. So you need your cream cheese and your butter to be softened, which means typically sit them out on your counter for a couple of hours, let them get room temperature. If you don't have that amount of time to wait, you can just take them and the cream cheese you can take out of the foil wrapper, put it in your microwave for about 20 to 30 seconds until it gets soft. You just don't want them to be melty. And then your butter, maybe about 10 or 15 seconds in the microwave until it gets soft. So we're starting with our cream cheese first. And scrape as much of it as you can in there because you want as much of your ingredients in as you can get. Next is going to be 2 tablespoons of butter. And here in a second, you're going to see whenever it comes to the powdered sugar, if you end up getting a little bit extra in there, it'll be okay. It'll mix in all right. You just want to make sure you have at least the minimum amount. So here we go. That's my imitation vanilla. 1 teaspoon of that. You could use real vanilla also. And another thing I will say is the brown vanilla extract that you get will kind of make your icing like an off-white or like a cream color. If you wanted it to be just a really super stark white color, go for the clear vanilla. And there you see me accidentally dump a little bit extra powdered sugar in there. Perfectly fine. It'll all get mixed in just like it's supposed to. So now I'm going to clean up my area again. I'm going to put that whisk head back on. And you don't have to have the whisk attachment. If you're using a hand mixer, just the little beaters that come with it, perfectly fine. You're going to start off slow again so you don't blow your powdered sugar all out of your bowl. And this is going to need to be beaten probably, I would say, 3 to 5 minutes because you really want to make sure with your filling that you get all of those clumps of powdered sugar and everything really well incorporated. You don't want any like crystallization or any chunks in your icing. So I'm going to lift that up. I'm going to scrape the bottom of this bowl really, really good because the vanilla mixing with your powdered sugar will create like a paste on the bottom of your bowl. You really got to get in there and get that scraped off so that it gets mixed into the rest of your icing. So once I get all of that worked up off the bottom, I'm going to drop that whisk back down into the bowl and continue to beat that, and I'm going to turn the speed up to the highest speed that I have in my machine for the remainder of the beating process on that. So again, I'm going to wipe up my station here, and then I'm going to bring over my cooled pumpkin roll. Here you'll see the camera spinning. I have one of those Roomba vacuums, and I'm watching my icing, so I did not see it first, but my vacuum got a hold of my tripod and spun you guys around, and my daughter had to tell me that he was taken off with my camera, so trying to get all of that fixed back now. And then that ends up happening again here in a couple of minutes. Alright, so my icing is finished being whipped. And spin you back around so you can see the counter here. And what you want to do before you ice your pumpkin cake part is to have a nice piece of saran wrap laid out on the counter. There I'm showing you up close what your icing should look like. It should be smooth, but it shouldn't be too melty or runny. Whenever you pull that whisk up out of there, it should kind of hold its shape on the end of it. All right, so next step is going to be to actually ice the cake part of it. That's probably the easiest part of the process. Getting everything scraped off the side of the bowl so that all of my icing is there together and I can just scoop it out into one blob onto that cake. And then you'll see me pass off the beater to my daughter. Alright, and once everything is mixed up, that's what your icing should look like in your bowl. And you don't need a whole giant gob of this filling, because when this cake gets rolled on top of itself, you're going to get quite a bit of icing into each slice of it anyway. So you don't need to like double or triple your recipe unless you're just really a glutton for cream cheese icing. So now comes the fun part, which is unrolling the cooled roll, icing it, and then rolling it back up to get our finished product. So I have my piece of saran wrap here laid out. That's what my finished pumpkin roll is going to go in to be wrapped up in and put in the refrigerator. And with the cream cheese icing, you do need to refrigerate these once they're made. You can't leave that cream cheese sit out. And there goes the Roomba with the tripod again. And this time I'm focused on unrolling my cake roll, so I don't notice it for a minute here, so you'll have to bear with me on the dark lighting. But if you can see in the back right corner of your screen, I've just unrolled the cake roll. And I'm going to be starting to scoop that icing out of that bowl you'll see there. And all you're going to do is just scoop it out into the middle of that cake roll and then just start spreading to all corners and all sides from the middle. And just like you did whenever you were putting the cake mixture into your baking pan, you want to try to get as even of a layer as you possibly can everywhere. So that's just what I'm doing in the background, taking a few minutes to really make sure that I get that spread nice and evenly. And we're almost back to where we need to be there. At least the lighting's a little better now. But you can see in the background I have it unrolled. And one end, the part that got rolled up first in your cake roll, will kind of be flipped up. You'll see me with my hand on that part there is kind of flipped, and then the other part is a little bit flat that's laying directly in front of me. And there I am fixing the camera now that I've noticed that you've been taken all over the kitchen. And now we're going to start to roll this up. So what I do is I pull up on my towel to kind of help lift that cake and get it to roll onto itself. And then I just use my other hand that's not holding the towel to kind of help roll it along. And there you'll see. This part here is a little bit easier if you can roll it towards where your plastic wrap is and then just roll it directly onto your plastic wrap. I had to pick mine up, which is fine. It didn't break in half on me, but it is still going to be kind of fragile at this point because everything is kind of warm and your icing is warm. Now you're just going to take this pumpkin roll that's finished, and you're going to roll it up in this plastic wrap, and then you're going to put it in the fridge. You won't want to slice these and eat them until they're good and cold and that icing has really set to kind of a solid state on the inside of it. So just rolling this up in the plastic wrap, and all of that powdered sugar that you see sitting on the outside of it right now will absorb into that in the refrigerator, and you won't see that whenever it's time to cut it and eat it. And there you go. That is your finished pumpkin roll. If you guys try this recipe, please let me know in the comments down below. If there's any other recipes that you're interested in learning how to make, please let me know and I'll try to make a video on that. If you like this channel, like and subscribe to it. Share it with a friend if there's someone else you know who likes to bake and cook. And as always, thank you so much for watching. And I hope you guys have a great holiday. I hope you have a good Thanksgiving.